This report was officially filed, logged, archived, and then it was removed. Why would a perfectly normal document, created through standard procedures, simply vanish from the system? By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how an official report entered the system and, more importantly, why it didn't stay there. We'll uncover the story of a document that was made to disappear and what that disappearance really means. Institutions run on records. A business, a government, a research lab, they all rely on a paper trail. When a document is filed, it gains a sense of permanence. It becomes part of the official memory, something that can be referenced, reviewed, and learned from. Removing a filed document does the opposite. It creates a gap, a void where information once existed. This story takes place in that strange space between permanence and absence, between a fact being recorded and then being unrecorded. It's not about a mistake or a lost file. It's about a deliberate act of removal, an intentional effort to erase a piece of the official story. Why would someone go to such lengths? That's the central question. Because when you erase a record, you're not just deleting data. You're attempting to rewrite history, even if it's just a small corner of it. This particular story is about more than just a missing document. It's a case study in how information is controlled and how official memory can be manipulated. It forces us to ask, if this can happen once, how many other times has it happened without anyone ever finding out? The silent removal of a record is a quiet kind of power, one that operates in the shadows of bureaucracy. So, how did this report even come to be? It started like any other. The report was created through completely normal, everyday procedures. It wasn't some secret back-channel communication. It was the result of a standard process. Data was collected, analysis was performed, and the findings were written up. It then went through the proper channels for review. Colleagues and supervisors read it, offered their feedback, and ultimately, it was approved. After approval, it was officially filed, assigned a reference number, and entered into the institutional archive. It became, for all intents and purposes, a permanent part of the record. The subject of the report wasn't scandalous or explosive. It addressed an issue that was already generating some low-level concern within the organization. It was a proactive piece of work, designed to get ahead of a potential problem. There was nothing extraordinary about its creation or its content at the time. And in a way, that's precisely what makes this story so important. It wasn't a whistleblower's bombshell or a confidential memo. It was routine. And the fact that something so routine could be targeted for removal is what makes this so unsettling. It shows that even the most mundane pieces of truth can be seen as a threat by someone. What was actually in this document that made it a target? You might be expecting a smoking gun, a dramatic accusation, but that's not what it was. The report didn't point fingers or lay blame. It simply documented what the data was showing. It identified patterns, highlighted emerging trends, and pointed out early indicators of a developing issue. Think of it less as an alarm bell and more as a weather forecast, warning of potential storms on the horizon. The tone was professional, objective, and measured. It suggested minor adjustments, course corrections that could be made to mitigate the issue before it grew into a serious problem. It was a classic example of due diligence, of an organization trying to be self-aware and responsive. The report was designed to be helpful, not inflammatory. It was a tool for improvement, not a weapon for internal battles. The contents were factual, data-driven, and forward-looking. Its primary goal was to inform decision-making, to provide a clear-eyed view of a situation so that leadership could act wisely. This is what's so puzzling. Why remove a document that was created to help? The answer might lie not in what the report said, but in what its continued existence would have represented. a clear, dated record that a problem was known long before it was publicly acknowledged. The moment of removal is shrouded in silence. There was no announcement, no memo, no official procedure for what happened. Sometime after it was filed, the report was accessed. We know this from system logs that weren't erased. And then, it was gone. Its reference number, which once brought up the document in any standard search of the archive, now returned nothing. The file was no longer in its designated location. It had been relocated or, more accurately, removed from the accessible system. There was no notice of this action, no explanation, just a sudden and complete absence. If you didn't know the report had existed in the first place, you would never suspect that anything was missing. The system appeared whole, intact. This is the subtlety of this kind of information control. It's not about loud denials or public rebuttals. It's about quiet erasure. It's like carefully removing a single brick from a massive wall. Unless you're looking for that specific brick, you'd never notice it was gone. The integrity of the archive was compromised, but in a way that left almost no immediate trace. The absence of the report became the new reality. So what happened next? In the void left by the missing document, life went on. The issue that the report had documented didn't go away, of course. In fact, it continued to grow, just as the report had quietly predicted. Over the following months and years, other summaries and briefings began to touch upon the same problem. But they never mentioned the original report. They couldn't or didn't officially exist anymore. These new documents treated the issue as if it were an emerging concern, something that was only just coming to light. They were written as if no prior analysis had ever been done. The institutional memory had been reset. The starting point for understanding the problem was now a new, much later date. It was as if a runner in a race had been told to ignore the first few miles they had run, and to pretend the race started at the halfway mark. By removing that initial report, the organization effectively erased the earliest warnings, making the problem seem newer and less predictable than it actually was. This shaped the entire response, delaying meaningful action, and changing the narrative around who knew what, and when. For years, that's where the story ended. A missing report, a problem that grew, and a collective institutional amnesia. But history has a funny way of holding on to things. Years later, a copy of the report surfaced. It wasn't found in an official archive or through a formal request. It was discovered in the personal records of an individual who had worked on it, saved to a personal drive long ago as a backup. This copy was the proof. It wasn't just a rumor or a memory. It was the document itself, with its original date, its reference number, and its content intact. This single file was enough to confirm everything. The report had existed, it had been filed, and it had been deliberately removed from the official record. The revelation didn't come with a bang, but with the quiet click of a file opening. It was the ghost in the machine finally showing its face. It proved that the institutional memory was not just flawed, but had been actively manipulated. The discovery of this copy didn't fix the problem it described, but it did restore a piece of the truth that had been intentionally buried. It was a testament to the fact that erasing something is much harder than creating it. What are the consequences of an act like this? Removing a report doesn't erase the problem. Reality doesn't change just because you delete the paperwork describing it, but what it does erase is memory. It erases the record of awareness, the proof of early warning, and memory is everything. Institutional memory shapes how an organization responds to challenges. It determines whether a problem is seen as a sudden crisis or a long-developing issue that was ignored. By erasing the memory of that first report, the actors involved ensured that when the problem inevitably became too big to ignore, their own inaction or delayed response would be harder to scrutinize. It's a profound manipulation of accountability. Without the original report as a benchmark, it becomes difficult to ask the tough questions. Why wasn't this handled sooner? Who saw the warnings and did nothing? The consequences ripple outward, affecting trust, transparency, and the ability of an organization to learn from its own past. It's a quiet form of sabotage, not against a person but against the truth itself. In the end, we're left with a sobering thought. Some reports are written and lead to immediate change. Others are publicly challenged, debated, and their conclusions are contested. Some are simply ignored, left to gather dust in an archive. And then there are those like this one, reports that are accepted, filed, made official, and then quietly removed, as if they never existed at all. These are perhaps the most dangerous, because they tell a story not just about a problem, but about a system's willingness to hide the truth from itself. If you're interested in the hidden stories behind the records we never see, Unfiled History publishes a new story every day, exploring the documents and histories that have been lost, buried, or removed. Subscribe to learn more about the history that didn't make it into the archives. Thanks for watching.